Kingdom Animalia. It's our last topic of the semester for this semester, which is spring 2020 that I'm recording this for. So again, at the beginning of every kingdom, I talk about major characteristics of that kingdom. Again, this is our third and last of the multicellular kingdoms. We have specialized cells form tissues. In most cases, we're going to start off talking about some very small examples of this, and so not all of that will necessarily be present or obvious, but for the most part, you see multicellular um, specialized cells and tissues. Heterotrophic, they're going to be heterotrophic. They're going to acquire food by ingestion, followed by digestion, and they have the power of motion or locomotion by means of muscle fibers. In the adult, you typically see diploid. You typically see diploid all the way through, but there are some exceptions to that. So in the adult, though, it's typically diploid. Usually reproduce sexually and produce an embryo that goes through developmental stages. Again, in a few of the phyla that we talk about, that won't be the case. Speaking of phyla, there are about 34 phyla, but we're not going to talk about all 34. We're only going to talk about 9, and that's because the others are just so strange that you've never seen them, and you never will see them probably in your entire life. And that may be kind of hard to think about, that there's animals out there that you will never encounter. The 9 phyla that we are going to talk about are going to have some strange things in them too, that you're going to think, most likely, some of you, depending on how much you've read on your own and studied, and what maybe your teacher did talk about in high school and how well you paid attention, you may have seen a lot of this before. But otherwise, some of the stuff's going to be pretty strange, especially the invertebrates. Okay. Um, and that's all of them except for one phylum. Okay. Actually, 33 phyla are composed of invertebrates, and only one are vertebrata, vertebrates, which is chordata. That's our phylum. Okay. All right. So the example, here's what I have students do in class, and I'll just take a minute, or a second, let you think about it. I say a word, and I want you to think about the first picture that pops into your mind. Ready? Animal. Got it? Then I go through the class and I ask the class to say, what'd you see? What'd you see? What'd you see? Typically, it's going to be a dog, a cat, dog and cat. And I said, if it's okay if somebody else says what you saw, you just tell me what you saw. What was in your mind when I said animal? And then, you get more rural farm kids, and they'll be talking about horses and cows and sheep and goats and pigs. And somebody will not be a town kid, maybe or a hunter, bird, you got town kids that have pet birds, parrots and things, birds, fish from the aquarium, turtles, salamanders, iguanas, whatever, things they might keep in their house, hamsters. And unless they get into the birds, fish, and turtles, though, everything I mentioned before that, dog, cat, cow, horse, sheep, goats, pigs, all of that, hamsters, but yeah, okay, uh, those are all mammals. Mammals. That's not even just our own phylum, that's our own class. So when we think of animal, we don't even think beyond our own class. We think that close to ourselves. Okay, we only think about other mammals, or that's our first indication. Of course, that's also what we typically interact with the most. Okay, we keep as livestock other mammals, we keep as pets other mammals. Okay, the bird obviously is aves, that's a different class. Fish um, is not, gosh, that word just escaped me. We'll have it here in a minute though. Okay. Uh, Amphibians, okay, is your class for your reptile things, the turtles and the reptiles, class Reptilia. So yeah, you got, those are still all in phylum Chordata, though. Okay. Ichthyes, there we go, your ichthyes for your fish. Okay, so we're going to talk about all these things. Again, I'm going to try to get through this quick. You can read on your own. I don't need to read it to you. We have types of symmetry. We have the asymmetry, no basic, radial. That's like, think of a pie. You can take a pie that you've baked in the oven and you can cut it through as long as you cut through the center portion, you can cut it anywhere and cut it in half, right? You could face that thing, decide what's compass north, and you can cut across compass north south, or you can cut that thing east west, go northeast southwest. I mean, yeah, it northeast southwest. Is that right? Yeah, okay. So maybe I got myself angled there wrong. Uh, you're gonna get two halves, no matter where you cut that, as long as you cut through the center. That's what that means. Bilateral symmetry, that's what we are. So here's pictures. And you see radial symmetry, there's the hydra. That's a polyp or a hydra. Okay. Anywhere along those glass panes, not all of them, but just one. Pick one. If you cut it through there, you got two equal halves on the other side. Cut it through there, the other one you got, okay, I'm going to go here, go there. But bilateral, which is what we are, okay, mammals are, and all chordates actually, because we have this, you know, dorsal cord that runs down our back, whether we call it a backbone or if it's just a notochord or something else. But it is a defining feature that splits us into two halves, two equal halves. And so that's the only way that we can get two equal halves. And so we are bi, meaning two, lateral symmetry instead of radially symmetrical. Okay. Coelom, that's what the internal body cavity is, lined or not lined. And that determines that. If you mesoderm is like, it's like a middle skin. Derm is skin, right? So if you've ever gutted an animal, a deer, a rabbit, or squirrel, or anything, and you cut into the hide under the stomach, things don't just gush out the minute you cut the hide open. You run into another skin, a sac that contains all the guts, and you got to cut into that, and it's usually pretty tough. But you got to cut into that before all the guts spill out, and you get rid of all that stuff out of there and clean the animal. Uh, that's mesoderm basically. Okay, and then the internal body cavity is completely lined with that in mammals because we have a true coelom. Okay, some animals don't have any lining at all. um, you cut through their outside covering, and you're right there, all their body fluids are right there. um, the type of guts they've got, there's no sac containing them or anything like that. That's acoelomate. And then you have the in between, the pseudocoelomate, and that would be next to the body wall. They've got this kind of this sac that um, separates them, but still, if you were to kind of gut them from these sort of ventral stomach, these things, where's the stomach on some of these organisms? But if you were to open them up, you wouldn't run into anything that's containing the fluids or the insides. Okay, segmentation, that's just repetition of body parts. We'll get into that a little more. So our first grouping is going to be the invertebrates that are acoelomate. They don't have a true coelom. And so these are sponges, cnidaria, and flatworms, and roundworms. So sponges are phylum Porifera. Pores, sponges have pores. Okay. Some freshwater, but mostly marine filter feeders. Multicellular, but they don't have specialization. So they're asymmetrical, grow kind of any old way, reproduce by budding. So they grow any old way, and if part of them breaks off in a current of water and gets carried somewhere else and attaches, it can grow a whole new sponge. It's not a, not a problem. And then it does also release sperm and eggs into a central cavity where they can join and form a zygote that happens to have cilia. Remember cilia from our protozoans, and that can swim to a new location and start up another little sponge. And when I talk about sponge, if you've bought a natural bass sponge, not a man-made synthetic sponge, but a natural bass sponge, that's, you've bought a portion of a sponge. Somebody harvested a bit of this off, and it's okay if you don't overharvest because it'll grow back. Okay. Um, it may not grow back the exact same shape because shape is indeterminate. But it'll grow more sponge cells onto itself. Okay, so here's a little diagram of some of that. And so, yeah, because they're not specialized, the cells aren't specialized, they can regenerate the broken segments. They can regenerate from the broken segments. Okay. And we have different types of sponges depending on what kind of little spicules they have, or their internal skeletons made up inside their cells. If they have calcium spicules, and they're going to be calcium sponges, and those would be kind of rough. If they have silica spicules, we call glass sponges. And if they have collagen, then those are going to be spongin fibers, and that's what we typically are interested in for our bath sponges, okay, because those are soft and flexible. The others would be kind of abrasive, all right? Cnidaria, phylum Cnidaria, tubular and bell-shaped animals, radially symmetrical. So remember, I said that you needed to learn about some stinging cells and protozoa because you're going to run across some new ones here. Okay, well, here they are. Okay, we had trichocysts before, I believe. These are nematocysts now. Okay, similar idea, but now instead of being extensions of a cell membrane on a single-celled organism, these are actually stinging cells. Okay, multicellular little structures. So these are triggered when the cnidarian is touched, and that's why a jellyfish will sting you. There's two body types in a jellyfish. We have the polyp here, and then it'll mature into what's called the medusa form, and that's what we think of as a jellyfish. Okay. So examples of cnidaria are hydra. So we have some hydra polyps that they grow in this type of form. They're not jellyfish, but they grow in this type of form, and they stay in that type of form always. Then we have the sea anemones. Again, those are polyps, but their tentacles look like brightly colored flowers. Corals, that's a calcium carbonate skeletons of basically the dead ones, which form coral reefs in shallow waters, and then the new generation grows right on top of the remains of the older one. So that builds up the reefs. The Portuguese man of war, I've got pictures of these somewhere. Here we go. All right, sea anemone, corals. Here's your Portuguese man of war. And that is actually a floating colony of polyps. It's not a medusa like your jellyfish here. That's the only true medusa. Got a dead fish caught in its tentacles here, but you got one big gas-filled polyp with the tentacles hanging down, and you've got other little gas-filled polyps attached to it with their tentacles hanging down, and it's just a floating floating mess. Mass of tentacles, yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's your examples on that. Platyhelminthes. Plat, plate, plateau, Greek word. Okay. So helminth means worm. An anti-helminthic. Have you ever seen that? That's a term that I grew up hearing a lot because that's what we used to give the animals. You didn't give them a dewormer, you gave them an anti-helminthic. I talked in a previous presentation about 19th century. They used bigger words that were more subtle, had nuance. Say deworm, and well, I never heard that word until I was, I don't know, high school, I think. Somebody said dewormer, and I went, what the heck is that? Oh, anti-helminthic. Okay. You know, it was just what was used. I don't know why. So why did you use the think I jarred my my microphone there for a bit, sorry. Why would you use the harder word? Well, because it was descriptive. Okay, it was just more descriptive, I guess, to people at the time. I don't know. We had, like I said, they had a bigger vocabulary 100 years ago, 150 years ago than we do today. A coelomate, they don't have a true coelom, but they do have a sac, kind of a sac body plan. Um, yeah, you can read these things. Diffusion doesn't breathe air with like lungs or anything like that. It just lets the gas exchange across its surface of its body. Okay. But anyway, platyhelminthes, exactly what it says, flatworms. It's a flatworm, flat worm. Okay. So we have planaria, flukes, and tapeworms in this group. Planaria are the only free living worms in this group that we're going to talk about. Small, they're black, brown, or colorless, the flatworms. They do have what we call cephalization. Cephalus, or actually I think in the Greek it would be pronounced cephalus, but we don't pronounce it that way. So cephalus is head, that means head. And so this means we've got formation of a head, or a part of this organism we can refer to as the head. So what scientists do is they look and they say, does this organism have any type of sensory organs? Notice on us, our sensory organs are what? Sight, eyes, hearing, ears, taste, mouth, smell, nose. Okay, and the touch is like all over the body. So that's not localized in one area, but the organs for the other four senses are all localized in one place, aren't they? Our head, cephalus. Okay, so yeah, um, and the we find that that isn't always the case, but it's often the case that an organism that has more than one sensory organ will have them close to each other. Okay, the sensory organs often get clustered together in one location. So scientists look at that and say, "That's the head." Whether it looks like a head to us or not, that's the head. That's where the sensory organs are clustered. If they only have one sensory organ, then we still look at that area and go, "That's the head." Okay, so planaria have eye spots. Okay, um, and we look at that and call that the anterior, the front end, and the head. Therefore, moves in a gliding motion on a film of mucus it produces. It's got a little cilia on its epidermis that helps. It's hermaphroditic, produces both male and female organs, or possesses, sorry, both male and female organs, but it generally cross fertilizes, and I'll talk about that more with earthworms. And here's our little planaria right here. The other's a drawing, this may be a painting, but here's a picture. Uh, so we've got these little eye spots here that truly look like eyes. And this looks like a nose, but as far as I know, there's not any smell detectors there. But what we do have here is something looks like ears, right? And yes, the auricle, it has the ability to, I think, sense vibration, okay, with this area here. Uh, so truly, oh, um, a head, okay, with clustering of more than one uh, sensory organ. Okay, platyhelminthes, fluke and tapeworms. This is our parasitic pairing couple of this phylum. We don't have sensory organs. What we have is a mouth, hooks and suckers that attach to the host and absorb nutrients through the host digestive tract. And that's exactly what it does. It just attaches to the digestive tract and absorbs what the host has already gone to the trouble to digest for them. So they're really, truly freeloaders. The disease most commonly caused by blood flukes. That's you may have heard of it. You might hear about it if you go into any health-related field. It's schistosomiasis, um, and it's common in blood flukes in the Far East and Africa, and it enters the body by penetrating the skin, and then gets into the digestive system from there. Tapeworms, everybody's probably somewhat familiar with tapeworms if you've got pets, because you have to give your pet a dewormer. No, anti-helminthic. You go to the vet every year to have them given something to make sure they don't get worms, get rid of the ones they've got if they picked any up. Tapeworms have a head, which is referred to as a scolex, that contains hooks and suckers, and then it's going to attach with that to the intestines. When uh, Okay, eggs eggs are eaten. Eggs wind up on vegetation and they're eaten by animals, and then the larvae will burrow into the mussels, and then these larval worms form cysts in the meat, and when that meat is eaten and digested out by a carnivore, okay, so both herbivore and carnivores are going to get this, but it's the carnivore that winds up uh, coming out and pour into that, basically, um, or the omnivore, could be an omnivore. The herbivore is going to eat it off the vegetation and it's going to insist in its muscle, but it doesn't necessarily cause any problems while it's there to the herbivore. But then here comes the carnivore omnivore along and eats that meat, um, and that uh, digests out the worm and then puts it into the intestine of that secondary host, the animal that ate the meat. And this can happen to us. Okay, if we eat poorly cooked beef or pork, most commonly where we'll pick up tapeworms. But we cook our meat, you cook it properly, you follow the instructions on the heat and get it all cooked fine, you're okay. It's not going to happen. You're going to kill the worm and you're like, oh, gross, I'm still eating worms. Yeah, well, you're going to be eating the eggs of them on vegetation. You say, well, I wash it. Yeah, okay. Those get stuck on there pretty good with some stuff that really doesn't come off very easily. Okay, so we it's extra protein. Okay, don't worry about it. But cook your stuff and you're fine. Phylum Nematoda, these are the roundworms. So you can find them almost anywhere, sea, freshwater, soil. Um, tube within tube body plan. We see a digestive system that's complete instead of kind of partial or depending upon something else to do most of the work for it. We see a pseudocoelom here. So it's fluid filled, which helps the organism to act, to have kind of a hydrostatic hydraulic motion ability to counteract against muscle contractions to help it move. Example here is a scarus. Whole little definition or description here of how this thing works. It goes, it's eaten, it's in the intestines, and it gets winds up in the lungs, and then it gets swallowed again, and it's going to wind up in your intestines. So it goes through quite a process. You can read about that. Okay, and then larvae containing eggs get released in the feces to start the whole process over again. So lovely, huh? And that's what it looks like. Another example in this group is also the trichinella. This is one that we can pick up most notably from eating uncooked pork or poorly cooked pork. And I usually tell a story about how my grandfather actually got this. So this is nasty. You don't want to get this. He lived to 101 almost. He died about 3 weeks shy of 101. But from 95 on, he was in incredible pain with this. He was on painkiller. I don't know exactly the composition or the dosage, but as I recall my aunt and parents talking about it, it was like practically straight opium. He was hallucinating. I'd go visit him and I'd take him food at the um, nursing home where he stayed, and he knew who I was, but there was all sorts of things happening around us that weren't really happening. He was seeing visions of things from when he was younger. We looked at a blank wall one day, and he was a window, and he was looking out. Oh, well, I happened more than once, I think, but there was always something going on outside that window. And he grew up as a kid harvesting cotton, and there was a cotton field out there one day. He was talking to me about harvesting cotton. I learned a lot about harvesting cotton that day because I'd heard him talk about it before, but not quite in that detail. So the point is, he was still in pain. Even while he was doing that, he hurt the whole time, and he knew he hurt. He told me he hurt, you know, but he was hallucinating. Okay. It's painful. So, and what did he do? Well, he grew up in a time when, you smoked your own pork, and smoked pork doesn't actually have to be cooked because it's been dried, it's been smoked, it's cured. And all of these little things inside of it are dehydrated and dead. So you can just go out to the smokehouse and cut off a chunk of ham, pork, bacon, whatever, and eat it. And that's what he was kind of used to doing. And then he stopped doing that as he got older and started buying these hams and porks and bacon. And, he never quite somehow or another made the adjustment that they weren't cured properly anymore. They just had chemicals and stuff to give them the flavor of being cured, but they weren't truly cured. And so he would go to the refrigerator and pull out a piece of bacon and eat it raw. Okay. Fed it to us grandkids. It's amazing we didn't get trichinosis, but we didn't. Trichinella. Um, so says something about the cleanliness of the pork industry at the time we were growing up, I guess. But he did it often enough that it's like Russian roulette. Eventually, you get the chamber with the bullet. He got the pork with the trichinella. So anyway, it took a long time for everybody to figure out what it was. They just thought arthritis, but then the arthritis medication worked, and finally somebody thought to do a muscle biopsy on him, and this is what they saw. I've seen preparation of tissue muscles through microscopes, not his, but other, laboratory prepared for study for like microbiology classes and stuff. And this is exactly what it looks like in the muscle tissue. This little curled spiral, kind of cute. I mean, but um, not if you know the suffering it can cause. So, moral of the story: cook your pork. Don't have to stop eating it. Just cook it. Use your little meat thermometer, take your temperatures, and you're good. Okay, but just don't ever be tempted to eat it raw. Okay, smoked, if smoked properly, nothing wrong with that, but not raw. All right, and that's there. There's no cure once it's infected. Once you're infected with it, yeah. As it says there at the bottom. Elephantiasis is going to be a little worm that's carried by a mosquito. Yet one more thing to be carried by a mosquito, yeah. And the mosquito is a secondary host. But it gets in you, it'll block your lymph vessels, causing swelling of limbs. And so you get pictures of people in in really poor countries where they don't control the mosquitoes. They can't control the mosquitoes very well. They don't have good sanitation, and all this stuff just spreads. You got arms and legs of kids. Usually it's kids they show, but it can happen to anybody, I think. It's possible that people don't live very long with it once they get it, so I don't see adults with it that often, and kids are more susceptible, maybe, I don't know. But they have their limbs, legs and arms, 2, 3, 4 times the normal size, and that's where the term elephantiasis comes from, because I've seen pictures of legs. It looks like an elephant leg, not a human leg, attached to a young child, and it's really, really sad. But that's what causes it, is this roundworm that gets in there. And anything that blocks lymph flow is dangerous to us. Okay. We do actually put some things on our bodies that can block our lymph flow. Okay. Certain chemicals and things that absorb through the skin that kind of block up lymph, and then we wind up with maybe not elephantiasis, but potentially there's some possible linkage to cancers. Okay, with the lymph being blocked. But again, a lot of that is not well supported with research. But it's not good to have your lymph blocked in any way. Okay. Pinworms. These are common in children in the southern U.S. I don't know how common they are here in Oklahoma, but we are considered the South on some maps and not on others. It kind of depends, I think, on whoever's writing the article, whether they want to include us in the South or not, or whether we fit for that particular topic. Kids get them. You go to the doctor, get an antihelminthic, and you're fine. They're treatable. It's not a problem. You just do want to watch. And if you're a parent or become a parent someday, what I was told by, I teach nurses I teach pre-nurses in microbiology. In the summer I used to teach, and now I still teach the chemistry for health sciences. And I have students in there who are working as a CNA, assistant nurse, assistant. They're working on getting their own degree of nursing, but they're not a full-blown nurse yet. But yet they're doing a lot of stuff. Sometimes working in the hospital right there with the nurses. They know quite a lot already. They've seen a lot already. They have some stories to tell me. And so I've been told that one of the things to look for in children, if they've been outside playing in the dirt, they get their hands all dirty, stick their hands in their mouth, they run in and grab cookies or snacks and they'll wash their hands. And so you pick this up from the soil. You pick it up from petting cats and dogs that have it and are shedding it, and not washing your hands. And it's easy to get. Okay, it's not a sign of being dirty or anything like that. Just kids are dirty and they don't think about washing their hands. So um, I don't know, maybe kids don't play in the dirt like they did when I was a kid, but I love playing in the dirt. So anyway, that's how you get it. And so if you notice that there's a lot of like anal digging going on, then you should check. And I didn't know how to check or anything like that. Never never been an issue with me. Okay, but anyway, they said that what you do is you wait till your child's ready to go to bed at night, put them to bed, turn the light off, and these little worms will kind of come out of the anal opening at night. And you take the flashlight and you shine it, pull pajamas down and shine it on the anal opening. And if you see little worms, and they'll crawl back in away from the light, then okay, that the itching is not just like irritated chapped skin or something like that. It's actually worms, and you need to go to the doctor, call the doctor, get an appointment, and go get you an antihelminthic and take care of the problem. Hookworms, a little more serious here. Okay, these get attached in there in the intestinal wall. They feed on the blood, and they get too big and too many multiply in there. They'll cause anemia. Okay, and that can become a very, very serious health issue and cause death. So got to take care of that. I mean, pinworms left unchecked too can cause intestinal problems, health problems. All these little parasite things, parasitic worms, they suck our nutrients out of us before our body gets a chance to absorb them when they get too widespread and too numerous. And so we have to address them and take care of them, get rid of them. Okay, take care of the problem, not take care of them, but take care of their problem. And in order to not have ourselves deprived of some nutrients that we need. Now that I've made you all go, oh, this is horrible and awful and life is terrible because you can't get away from all these things. Yeah, you can. Okay. Good hygiene, proper sewage systems, and cooking meat thoroughly are basically the three things you have to follow. and then you don't have to worry about these things. Okay. And of course, on some, if you do, we've got anti-helminthics for them. Okay. So just be aware, be aware of these things and that they exist, and that as long as they don't get too far gone before you catch them, they're usually easily treated. I understand tapeworms, if they get humans can get those too, and if you get one of those a little too far advanced, it can be a little more difficult to get rid of. Well, trichinosis you can't cure. That's the one I know for sure you can't cure. Some of these others may be difficult too, but like these last few I've talked about, not so bad. All right, that's where I'm going to end this one. We'll start our next one with the Truciolum invertebrates. Talk to you then.